Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching the Technique of the Month from Digital Photo Magazine. Now this month I'm feeling all artistic and creative, so I'm going to show you how you can turn an ordinary photograph into something that looks a little bit more like a watercolour painting, using nothing more than Paint Shop Pro and a few filters, but more importantly, some great images we've got on this month's cover CD. Now with any luck, we're going to end up with a picture that looks something like this. But to begin with, this is the picture we're actually going to use. So this is the picture. It's kind of a nighttime scene. We've got these strong images in the foreground, these two beach huts, and it's also fairly dark. Now I don't mean it's taken after dark. I mean there's no big blank white areas. If you're using one of your own pictures, that's something to watch out for. If this sky was completely white, the technique wouldn't work half as well. So what are we going to do? Well, first thing we're going to do is to apply an effect to this image to make it look slightly more like a painting. So let's do that now. Let's go up to Effects, choose Art Media Effects, and choose Brush Strokes. Now this is kind of a complicated and powerful effect in here, but I'm simply going to set it onto the default setting because that actually works really, really well. I'm just going to click OK. Now that's going to take a few seconds to apply to the image. And we're done. So that looks okay, but it's a good idea to go in nice and close. So let's have a look at the actual pixels, and you can see here, yeah, it's given that kind of painted effect, but it's still quite a digital look. You can see some obvious pixelation here. So just to blend this in slightly more, I'm going to go to Adjust, choose Blur and Gaussian Blur, and the default setting 1 pixel, perfect. That'll just blend in the soft edges like that, so it takes away that kind of pixelated obvious look. Perfect. We'll click OK. Right, so that's the basic image prepared, but we've got to do just a little bit more work, particularly with layers. So let's pop open the Layers palette, F8 on the keyboard, and you'll see you have a single layer called Background. Now, we need a copy of that, so I'm going to go to Layers and choose Duplicate. So I now have an exact copy. I'm going to do two important things. First of all, that copy, I'm going to drop the opacity down to around about 20 to 30%. Doesn't have to be accurate. The next thing I'm going to do is to click on the layer below, the original background layer. Now both of those steps are really important and can't be missed out, but the weird thing is that neither of those steps seems to have made any difference to the picture whatsoever. But, you know, stick with me, it will become clearer what they're for later on. Right, next is going to be a painted effect, that kind of brushed watercolor effect. And to achieve that, we're going to use some of the special images we've created exclusively for this tutorial. Now, they're on the cover CD. I've got a couple here already, so let's open up the first one, number 1. There's plenty to choose from, but I'm actually going to use numbers 1 to 4. So here we are, this is the first one here, and what I need to do is to get this image and pop it on top of that picture. So we're going to copy it using Edit and Copy. Then we're going to close that image down and then go back to Edit and choose Paste as New Layer. And that's going to pop that image straight on top, like that. Now you can still see some of the picture coming through. That's caused by that duplicate layer, that very low opacity duplicate layer. So we're using that duplicate layer as a guide, as a template, but we're going to dump it towards the end of the tutorial. Now, as you can see, this image that we've pasted on is a little bit too small, so let's make it a bit bigger. Let's get the pick tool and we'll just stretch this out a little bit. Now, this is where the fun starts, because when you try and use the pick tool to move things around, you'll often find yourself moving the wrong layer. So let me just open the Layers palette, go back to the raster one that we've just painted in. And remember the secret trick, which is to hold the Control key. Holding Control will mean that you can only drag the layer that you're actually active on. Otherwise, Paint Shop Pro will try and make that decision for you, and when we're doing something like this where we have a low opacity layer over the top, it'll always get the wrong one. There we go, perfect. So that's positioned it so it now fills the screen quite nicely. Now you could stop there, it's kind of a nice effect actually, but I like to build these effects up. So we're going to add in some more of these brushed images. So let's open another one. Let's go for the second one, number 2. And we'll do the same as before, Edit and Copy. We'll close this down and then we'll paste it on. So Edit, Paste as, New Layer. Boom, in it goes. Now remember to hold control as you move this into position, and I can put this anywhere, but I'm looking, can you see the sort of spiky bit here on the right hand side? I'm looking at the point of the beach hut there. I'd like those two to tie up a little bit closer, so let's spin this around a wee bit like that, and we'll drag that over like so. Okay, and just a little bit more of a rotation required. Lovely. And now we can start to resize this a little bit. So let's just bring this in to make it a bit smaller. You don't have to stick with the images the size that they come off of the computer, of course. You can make them any size you like. In fact, that's a good thing, so you don't end up with an image that looks too repetitive. Something like that. Stretch it down. Another thing to watch out for as well is none of these drop off the edge of the canvas area, because that's going to look pretty horrible if it does. So we'll keep them within the bounds of the picture. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe we'll just shrink it in a little bit there. I could fiddle around with this all day long. Probably shouldn't, but you know, you just got to get it right, don't you? There we go. Like that. So that does that beach hut, but I'd like to do the same to the second beach hut. But before I do that, can you see here down the side, we've actually got quite a hard white edge. Well, jump back to the layers and we'll fix that in a jiffy. Simply change the blend mode from the current layer from normal down to multiply, and that blends it in. Good. Okay, we'll copy that layer, and duplicate, because I'm going to use the same one again on the second beach hut. Okay, so this time we'll move this. Remember to hold control. Nearly forgot. There we go. And we'll shrink it in a little bit. Let's just drag it in at the corners. If we can get hold of a corner handle or even a side handle, it doesn't matter. Lovely. And we'll swing it around. Actually, I tell you what, now I've squashed it down, I quite like this pointy bit, maybe to go with the perspective of the other beach huts disappearing down the beach line there. Yeah, that could work quite nicely, actually. That works nice there. And we'll stretch that up and stretch this in. Every time you do this, you're going to end up with a different picture. And that's perhaps the beauty of this whole technique, is it never ends up the same twice. Okay, that's nice. This area down here of beach, I think we can do something with that. So let's open up a third image. Let's see, it would be number 3 for mine then. Here we go. And we'll copy that in again. Close it down. We don't need it anymore, but we'll paste that as a layer. This one's much too big, so again we need to move it and resize it so it kind of fits. Drag that in. Whoops, wrong one. Not to worry, just go back to the layers, swap onto the right layer, and try again. Okay, that's it. Shuffle that in. There, got it. Down we come. We'll spin it around, because I think we want to bring this over here and stick it onto the side, something like that. There we go. And once again, just being careful that it doesn't drop off the edge of the picture. It's kind of close there, so let's bring that up a little bit. Good. Okay, so that's fine. Once again, we've got this hard white area there, so remember how we did it before? We changed the blend mode to multiply, and that magically made it disappear. Right, so last one. Purely optional, this one, but I'm going to put a big one all the way over everything just to give it a nice kind of finished look. So the last one I'm going to open, which is number 4. We'll copy it in. You've seen this before, so I'll whiz through it a little faster, paste it as a layer. With the pick tool, just stretch it up and down and out to the sides as well. One and one more. Like that. Okay, that's fine. Now remember that little layer trick where we change the blend mode? We absolutely must remember to do that again, otherwise we don't see any of the work we've done so far. And there we are. Okay, so we've built the effect up through different layers, and adding in more and more layers, we've built this brushed effect up until we got something that looks very, very nice. But remember those layers? Remember the one I said we were going to get rid of? Well, it's done its job, and now we can get rid of it. So let's just delete that layer. We'll right-click it, choose delete, and it's gone. Okay, so you can see the painted effect, but we've got that painted effect over 5 layers, and I need to have that on 1. So I'm going to go to layers, I'm going to choose merge, and then merge down. Okay, and then repeat that again, layer, merge, merge down. And again, layer, merge, merge down. It's tempting to use flatten or flatten all, but don't do that, because it really does make a mess of everything. because we want to keep that as its own separate layer, because now we can apply another layer effect, which is to change the blend mode to screen. This is where the magic happens, and we see if we've got it right. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. So you can see you've got that nice white edge, you've got the color coming through, but you can see those brush strokes coming through very nicely. Right, so that's the basic picture finished, but as a finishing touch I'm going to add in a nice little keyline border. One of the beauties of Paint Shop Pro is how easy it is to add in that type of border. Here's how we do it. Come up to Image, choose Add Borders, and from the little pop-up box that appears here, choose your border color first of all. Now I'd like to have a thin black border, so I'm going to choose black. Like that. I'm going to have the size small, 20 pixels. In fact, to make it smaller, so let's make it 10 pixels. So that'll be 10 all the way around. I've got it on symmetric, so I only have to type it in once, and I end up with a small black border. There it is. And in fact, I'll do that again to put a nice big white one around that. So Image, Add Borders, change the color. This time we'll change it to pure white. And we'll add a big one in. Let's add in a 300 pixel border, and we'll click OK. And there you go. It's as simple as that, as making those keyline borders. So there we are. There's how you can create a beautiful painted effect with a keyline border around the outside using nothing more than a standard picture and Paint Shop Pro.